And welcome, everyone, to another presentation of the EWA podcast. My name is Craig. I am your host for this iteration of the podcast. Next week, Hash Pipe Report coming to you pre-Civil War Hash Pipe Report. Always a fun one. Predictions really tough in that one. Looking forward to it. But today, for this week, I have a very special guest on. It's not too often in the EWA where we get real-life wrestlers coming through into our Fed. And, you know, this is something that is a passion project for all of us, and we do this because we enjoy wrestling. Maybe not so much now, but there was a point in our lives where we all loved wrestling to that point, and I think all of us had that dream at one point to want to be a wrestler or to take that chance. So it's pretty awesome to have someone here who has followed that dream and been in the ring and worked with people. And you know, we've had people in the past like Ed, who's done a lot of stuff and is still doing stuff. But you know now we have Josh here. And Josh, welcome to the EWA podcast, and congratulations on getting back in the ring in the last few weeks after everything that's happened to you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's definitely pretty surreal to be back in the ring, and you know, but it has nothing on being the love child of Brady and Newt. I mean, well, that's just.
You guys all hear it. Like, first minute that we're in, you all, like, I'm just the harbinger of truth, and now you guys all hear it yourselves. But no, Josh, you are highly active in the EWA. You are someone who, to put it mildly, I would say, really cares about this place. You enjoy having everything from casual conversations about feuds and other people in the EWA to deep level conversations about storylines and role plays and things like that. You know, you and I have talked at length, but you know, I'm not the only person that you talk to at length about that stuff. I know that much is true. I just know that you're a person that cares a lot about the EWA, and I thought it would be good to have you on at the EWA podcast, not only to talk about the EWA, but to talk about your personal wrestling history. So I hope you're ready for some hard-hitting, grilling questions.
I'm actually very excited to talk to you, Craig. That's you know, believe it or not.
I don't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Well, let's.
He's a dick guy.
Before, that's just hearsay. Before we jump into the EWA conversation, let's talk about your real-life wrestling, which, you know, is something that not a lot of us get to experience in our lives. A lot of us, the closest we get to it is either the EWA or going to a live event or two, or wrestling our wrestling buddies on our parents' bed watching the 1989 SummerSlam. That's not from personal experience. That's just a situation I threw out there. I had a Hulk Hogan one that had a hole in the back that the foam would come out of, and I had a Ted DiBiase one that fell in a puddle in my friend's yard and was really dirty. But that's beside the point. Let's belabor it. How did you get your start in the real-life wrestling business?
Well, I know we only have 45 minutes to an hour.
Yes.
I don't want to delve too much into it, but, you know, basically I have wanted to wrestle ever since I was 5 or 6 years old. And I can remember my first memory of wrestling, and that was when I was flipping through the channels. I was a big Atlanta Braves baseball fan. And there was an Atlanta Braves baseball game on TV, and I happened to switch to the wrong channel. Or it was me or my dad, whichever one. But Hulk Hogan was on TV, and he was wrestling Big Bubba Rogers. I believe it was the first Nitro. And I watched it, and that was it. Just something about Hulk Hogan, something about, you know, tearing his shirt off, the way he would taunt and everything else, and that was it. I can just remember it right then and there. And I went back, and I had a stack of VHS tapes that my dad measured that was like 4 foot high.
Yeah.
Of just anything with Hulk Hogan on it. That's what I wanted to watch, and you know, I stayed active with it and wanted to do it. Actually, amateur wrestled for years as well, because I wanted to be a professional wrestler. But my time when it actually happened for me was in 2011. It's kind of weird because there was a ring and a school 30 minutes away from me that I had no idea existed. And I never thought I would ever get into it because I just felt it was too hard. Maybe it was too far away. I would have to travel forever to even get to a school, or I didn't know exactly how to do it. But I watched a YouTube video by accident. It seems like all these things happen by accident, of Southern States Wrestling out of Fall Branch, Tennessee, and Kingsport, Tennessee. And there was a guy on there named the Iron Cross. He wrestled in WWE and done some enhancement work, for them and WCW. He was a part of the $1 Billion Babies with his partner. Seems like I should remember his partner's name, but I don't. Anyway, his school was in St. Paul, Virginia, which was 30 minutes away from me. And I went over there one time, stepped in the ring, and that was all it took, because I was in awe. I never thought I would actually see a ring. I actually had to stand there and look at it forever. And I finally got in, and one thing led to another. But what was so funny about it, Craig, was I didn't want to wrestle in front of people. I was scared.
Yeah.
I was overweight. I was like 300 and something pounds. People made fun of me in my entire life. I didn't have any confidence at all. And you would think that I did, consider my amateur wrestling history, but it just didn't work out for me that way. I got pretty decent. They wanted to put me in the ring. I ran away. I stopped talking to everybody because they wanted to put me in the ring. And then they had a show, and I saw pictures of it, and I vowed to myself that I would never miss another event that my name was advertised on, and I went back and I never stopped. That's how I got involved.
So, at an early age, Hulk Hogan was one that you he was the guy for you then?
Oh, yeah. As I progressed, of course, it was Stone Cold, like it was everybody. But my guy was always Hogan, and then, Macho Man was a close second.
I think a lot of us are around the same age, and so we kind of take for granted, that we all grew up watching the same group of wrestlers. And I think a lot of times we, look past or just look a gift horse in the mouth whenever it comes to Hulk Hogan. That being said, I think the reason for that is because we are in an era where we can look back and see what kind of person Hulk Hogan was behind the scenes and controlling and everything else that he did. And so what was that realization like for you once you came? Like, how has your view of Hulk Hogan changed from when you were growing up and really into him?
Well, there's a saying in professional wrestling that you should never meet your heroes because they'll just disappoint you in the long run. And that's true in a lot of ways. And, the revelation was a little bit telling for me to know that he was that way. But I'll never forget, in 2011, he had this horrible match with Sting for TNA. And it was Bound for Glory, I think it was. And he couldn't do anything. He was in jeans and, just kicking and punching. And, of course, Sting, he could still go, but Hogan was obviously past his prime. And they did this whole thing where I can't remember, the Aces and Eights maybe came into the ring and was beating up on Sting. And Sting crawled up Hogan and said, "Help me, help me, help me." And he was bloodied and battered and bruised. And then all of a sudden he just starts looking at the crowd. And, everybody else knows this about him too, because they're all smart fans, I guess. And they just come unglued when he finally started hulking up and helped Sting. And see, I guess that's kind of symbolic of how I feel as it pertains to the question that you asked, because no matter how I feel about Hulk Hogan behind the scenes, the way he was, Hulk Hogan will always be Hulk Hogan to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's the only way that I can see him. So those things seem a little bit irrelevant to me, I guess.
That's understandable. Some of us have been able to take a look at some of your work and your matches that you've posted to the forum and on YouTube and whatnot. Who would you say, as far as modern wrestlers go, your wrestling style is most akin to? Or I guess you could say someone in the past, if that was more inspirational to you as well.
Kurt Angle, period.
Kurt Angle, period. More sounds like an exclamation point to me. So
yeah,
well, I would say that falls under the vein of like technical pseudo submission, but very technical wrestler.
Oh, absolutely. Submission, kinda. I've got a submission wrestling background as well. But anybody that you can think of course, Angle. You can go down a laundry list. Finley, of course. I was always a big Finley fan, but he's more of a brawler. He actually doesn't get enough credit for his technical wrestling skills, which is one of the reasons why I like him, World of Sport and such. And then, Benoit, and the list goes on and on. People that you wouldn't even think about, Thunder Liger, There's all kinds of inspirations that I have. Eddie Guerrero. I'm trying to think of older wrestlers, but there's so many that I couldn't even get to them.
The indie scene is, I mean, for lack of a better term, the indie scene, it's kind of an unforgiving place. It's not like your New Japans. It's not like your WWE. It's not like really any of your larger promotions. It's its own different entity and beast. Do you feel like being a technical wrestler on that scene is tougher than it would be at higher levels? Because it feels like at that level in the indie scene, maybe a step below like Ring of Honor and stuff like that, people don't really care about the technical wrestling aspect of it as much. Or am I off on that assessment?
No, you're not at all. And the reason that you're not is because, when you come out there 9 times out of 10, when I wrestle in different states and stuff, and I've been to several, they have no clue who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go in there and you lock up and hammer locks, you got to look at it like this. You can be Zack Sabre Jr. and put on a technical spectacle in front of everyone, and they just sit on their hands and not care. I'm a crowd guy. If the crowd's not into it, then I'm going to do something to get you there. And sometimes it's like pulling teeth, but that's what I'm all about. So I've deviated from more of a technical wrestler to a guy who tries to elicit a prescribed response. And that takes a lot more just a level of psychology that people wouldn't understand than just locking up. It's harder and it's a challenge, and that's why I've sort of went that way.
Is it more of a challenge? Is it more of a challenge to work with, your partner and opponent whenever you are more of a technical wrestler?
It depends. Sometimes you'll run into guys that you have just a chemistry with, dude. It's hard to explain. It's just like I've been in the rings with a couple of guys who, of course we're smart here. You're calling spots, calling things you need, and you're calling the same thing over top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just have that kind of chemistry, and you just know where each other's going to be. It's the weirdest sensation or thing to experience. But some guys, you'll get in there, to your point, that you have to lead around like a dog on a leash,
like the Ultimate Warrior. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, and then what's frustrating to me, and not to go off on a tangent, some of these guys get the opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's the business too. It runs all over you. So yes, it is more difficult.
You can answer this question. I mean, you can take this question however you want. So just answer it. I don't think there really is there's only a right answer that but how close would you say you've come to making it to the next level or the big time or whatever you want to call it?
Well, I've had a couple opportunities to go overseas and to go to Canada and stuff like that. But for people listening to this out here, there's a thing in life called priorities. And, I have a dream, and it can be whatever you want it to be when you wrestle. It can be a weekend thing and stuff like that. There's a lot of old timers that will tell you, unless you're in it to make it big and make a living out of it, don't get into it. Sorry, I don't prescribe to that. That's sort of unrealistic, especially this day and age, because there's so many people out there vying for those spots. But I have had opportunities, Revolution Pro, things like that, I guess. I really didn't want to name drop any promotions because, sometimes they don't tell you. They just give you a shot, and if you don't take it, then fine. But the priority for me was I have a wife, and, I have, my dad who's not in the greatest shape. I didn't want to take a life on the road and be away from them and risk my personal relationships. So I didn't take those. But yes, I've had a couple of opportunities to go overseas, and stuff like that. But as far as WWE and all that, I haven't even come close.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing to crack into. And these days, unless you're a name on your own right, you have to go through the NXT tree to even have a chance at sniffing anything as far as the North American promotions go. So, I mean, I can understand that, but I mean, overseas is definitely, it's a viable option just because wrestling is treated so differently everywhere else, it seems like, than here in America, where, in the last 10 years, maybe 20 years, it's come a long way, but even at the lower levels, I think it's come a long way, but it still has a ways to go too.
Almost definitely. And I mean, I've had some of my friends, like Chase Owens, who's in New Japan right now, and he's getting ready to wrestle at Madison Square Garden, and that kind of stuff kills you.
Right.
Because
well, you're happy for him, but you also like you hate it at the same time. So
yeah, you kind of sit there and you wish it was you.
Mm-hmm.
But people ask me that all the time about the big time and stuff like that, and it's nothing against you, but it's more of just a passion for me. Yeah. I just always wanted to wrestle. I'm sort of like Bryan Danielson in that way. If I never get a chance, then I'll be okay, because I got the chance to wrestle, which is what I loved and what I always wanted to do.
I mean, it's more than 99% of the people who have a passion and interest in wrestling do anyway. So you've already established yourself as in the 1%, and whatever you decide to do from here, whether it be to pursue it further or to just kind of keep going where you're at, there's nothing wrong with either one of those, because like I said, you're already more successful than a lot of people who have dreams and aspirations in the wrestling business. So
well, I mean, I appreciate that. I do.
The times that I have had a chance to talk to others who have been in real life wrestling situations, I have to ask this again, because this is my favorite question to ask. Have you ever been, which I'm sure you have, but I'm just going to preface it, have you ever been in a Battle Royal or Royal Rumble match?
Oh, God.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay, here's my question. Here's my question, though. How difficult is it to, call spots in that situation? Or do you all go over everything together before the match starts, or are you calling stuff in the ring? How do you know the exit order? It's the most fascinating. It's the most fascinating thing to me at the mid to lower levels. Is just how the hell do you guys know what's going on in a battle royal at all times? Because a lot of times, you watch the Royal Rumble and it's just dudes beating up each other, and the guys who aren't on the camera are just fucking off in the corner. I mean, I assume, and at lower levels, it's probably just people just fucking off the whole time until it's their time to do something, right?
Pretty much, and it's a free for all, and it sucks, and it just I hate it, and you never know who's going to be throwing the punch. I've been potatoed so many times in battle royals that Lord, I hate it. But anyway, most of the time you have no idea, unless you're in the final four or whatever, what is going to happen. You just take as long as you get those four guys in the ring, that's all that matters, and then they do their thing. There's no big elaborate planning like there would be in a Royal Rumble for WWE or whatever the case. It's just, hey, guys, who's going to do the Battle Royal tonight? And this is when guys are tying their shoes and act like they didn't hear you. So, yeah, it kind of sucks.
Man, if I wasn't the first one out, I'd want to be the fifth guy left. I'd be like, screw you guys. I'm getting myself over here at the end. I'm going to be if you're not in the final four. If you can't be the first guy out, just go home. Just be the fifth guy left.
There's one or two guys. There's only two types of guys in these battle royals, Craig. Mm-hmm. One, the guy who jumps over the top rope at the start because he wants to go home.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's me.
That's the guy. That's the guy that wants to get eliminated 15 seconds into the match.
Hell yeah.
He wants to be in the showers, be naked, putting his clothes on by the time everybody comes back.
Well, you had me and then you lost me, but yeah.
Yeah. Or you don't like to walk around naked. I'm sure that's not true.
I mean, I'm doing this podcast naked, but yeah.
I wish I could see this. Anyway, or you have the guy that does not want to be eliminated.
That's me too. I want one of those too.
Or will hang on to the top rope, and you will absolutely have to beat. I mean, seriously, really, you have to punch him in the face to get him to go over. Get on the floor. I've had to physically drop kick a guy in the face, unsuspecting, to knock him out, to get him to take the bump and just get out of here, that kind of thing.
I would skin the cat every time. He's on his 14th skin the cat. My God.
That's a little harder than what you think. It's
definitely hard. Yeah, it's this fat ass is not going over and then coming back. This fat ass is going over and staying over. There's no.
Yes. They make it sound, he skinned the cat.
Yeah.
Skin the cat is so light, it's so easy. No.
Yeah. I'm always just fascinated by the battle royal. I guess the minutia that goes into it, because it seems sometimes it looks so poorly planned, and that's
because there's no planning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's because there is no planning to it. But man, Do you have any like great battle royal stories besides the drop kick the guy in the face that you're just like, what the hell is happening here right now?
None that's right off the top.
Say I
of
put you
my
on the
head.
spot. You think about that, and we'll come back to it.
Yeah, let's come back to that one because I'm sure I've got a few different ones. Maybe not even in battle royals, but
Yeah, let's transition.
I can think of one that wasn't a battle royal right now, but
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, guys, we talk about independent wrestling, and you think, wow, sparklers, and fireworks, and Titantrons, and music. Okay. I was wrestling in a high school gym one time, and it was in North Carolina. There was a guy that they put me up against. He told me he had been in the wrestling business 10 years. He was strong as an ox. One of the biggest guys I've ever wrestled. You can see where this is going, but he was wearing overalls. He was a hillbilly, kind of like Hillbilly Jim.
Mm-hmm.
But his name was Big Tater. That was who was on the card. Big Tater. And I didn't know why. But I was very curious. So I figured, okay, this guy's going to punch me in the face, which he did on a couple of different occasions and about knocked me out. But he actually physically carried a potato to the ring in his pockets and handed them to the fans. Think about that.
Baked?
And then, yes, and then he got in
baked
the ring.
Potatoes?
Yes, baked. A couple of them were baked. Some of them were raw. There were all kinds of different types of potatoes. Potato chips. He lived his gimmick. But sometimes, when you lock up with somebody, if they're going to be any good, this guy was not. This guy nearly killed me. So don't think it's as glamorous as what people say it is. So that's one story, and I'm sure I have
Big
more.
Tater. Big Tater, green in the ring, huh?
Very green. Yeah. I mean, he asked me, how was it after we went to the back? And I said, you should get out of the business right now. And I never say that to anybody.
But Big Tater had to get out, huh?
He hasn't wrestled since, as far as I know.
His
maybe I cragged him. Maybe I was a dick to him and he decided to quit. I need to apologize.
Okay, let's get ahead of this. Let's not coin that as an actual phrase, please.
Yeah.
Big Tater. All right, so let's transition from your real wrestling career to the EWA. How did you get started in E-Feds, and how did you find the EWA?
Well, I can actually remember this. In 2001, believe it or not, I think I was probably, 12 years old. This is how early I started. I came across an E-Fed called Elite Superstar Wrestling, ESW. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I was competent enough to understand that it was a fantasy wrestling website. I didn't understand role plays or anything like that. Of course, I quickly picked up on it, even though I was terrible. And I joined as Goldberg, and it was the coolest thing because they put me on the poster with Scott Steiner as the first main event. And I left that on my home screen on my computer for days because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So that's how I got started. The EWA, it was just by happenstance, really. I was thinking about E-Feds. I wonder if these things still exist because I haven't been in 10 years. Surely they do, maybe. But I got on geocities.com, and I used to write all my role plays on there. And they're actually still on there, believe it or not. I thought GeoCities shut down, but there's still some, I guess, fragments of what was left. But I found some of my old role plays as a character named Shiru Vanchez. The name sucks, I know, but it was a Japanese or Chinese character, rather, that was picked base of Bruce Lee.
Creator wrestler?
And I joined in every E-Fed with this guy, and I was reading some of my stuff, and I was like, this sucks. I was like, I was terrible. And this was about the time I was probably in my teens. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can find something. So I looked on top 100 E-Feds because that's all I could remember. And I went through a couple sites, and the first one that I come across was EWA. So actually WWE something, and I started to join it, but it had like 1 million members. And that turns me off. So I went to EWA, and then I was like, okay, I'll join as this. I talked to my wife, and she helped me with Dolph Ziggler, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
So your wife knows about your EFED, your writing stuff.
Oh yeah, I've read some of my stuff to her, and she tells me, I think she's just being nice, but she tells me I should have been an actual writer, and
she's just being nice.
She's just being nice. Yes, I figured you would say.
You just got Craig'd.
Yeah, that's. By the way, I'm trademarking this.
Ah, damn it!
Copyright Josh Rose, Joe Briggs, whatever, 2019. You just got Craig.
So you come in. What's that? Around September, August?
I think it was more July.
Oh, okay, July.
Family came in a little later, but
okay. Yeah, that's right. So you come in and you've had, what's a kind way to put this? A plethora of characters. Yeah, you've had enough to probably start your own Fed and run something with Dolph Ziggler, Nathan Jones, Bryan Danielson, Finlay, Samoa Joe, and I'm sure there are a few more that I'm forgetting out there as well.
Yeah,
Jushin Liger.
Yeah, I'm just not telling you guys. I'm actually a few other ones. I'm just doing it under different names.
Harry Smith. So anyways,
yeah.
I mean, what's the mindset behind, like, do you just have different ideas for guys that you want to do, or is it just, like boredom, or I don't know, like what's the thought process behind this?
Well, it's something like that. Mostly, you get immersed in something and you're just like, oh man, I have all these different ideas, but I can't do this with this character, so I'm gonna do it with this character. And then, you find yourself up shit creek and you're really, overcooking your bacon or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, at first it was more of me trying to find my identity, because when I joined as Dolph, he's nothing like me. And I figured maybe that was what I wanted to play with. I just wanted to have fun when I first joined. But, Dolph, I couldn't find any traction with him. I think I did okay. I really started to pick up momentum, I thought, with the addition of Nathan Jones, because I thought I needed something, because it just seemed like I was spinning my wheels. I would win one, lose one, win one, lose one, but I was trying.
Yeah.
And I finally got in the national title scene, and I had Nathan with me. And then, just full disclosure, there was a match I had with Lou. Don't mind losing to Lou. Lou's great. But Nathan Jones was not involved at all. And Dolph just got pinned clean. And I was like, okay, that's over with. So I've talked to John about that. And I was like, there's no bringing that back. I didn't think there was any way. So before that, I was brainstorming. And a lot of my characters are based on personal experience. But Finlay just kind of came in, and I've had a lot of people in my life pass away of cancers. I'm sure you have, and other people have seen that, and it just kind of clicked with me. So that was my guy. That, everybody else that I've joined as has kind of been experiments to see if I could challenge myself to do it, and that's what I like to do. That's probably the reason for a lot of the characters, to challenge myself. But Finlay came in, he clicked. It was just easy for me to write for him. Joe kind of, is another one there that's just easy. So that's the guys I stuck with. Danielson, he was a little out of my comfort zone with the addict stuff, because I've never so much as dipped skull or anything like that. I've never drank. But Jushin Liger, I'm not a big comic book guy, but I wanted to try that. And I, don't get me wrong, I hate failing as characters, so you're probably going to see those down the road. But for the multiple character thing, one or two, I'm done.
Yeah.
I've learned my lesson.
I mean, it really spreads yourself super thin, and there comes a point where you have to sacrifice one or more for the good of the others, because, you just can't do multiple characters at their top level. And, I say that, and we saw Lou with Sabin and PCO just kind of have a tremendous November, but even then, he didn't flame out the next month, but you could tell he was heavily breathing as he was trying to cross the finish line that was 2018.
You could see the cracks in the armor. And one more quick point for me, I think not being able to get in the ring myself, and that because I love to compete, that burning desire to compete, I think that had a lot to do with it. So I immersed myself in the EWA, and I wanted all my time to be there, so I didn't have to think about anything else. So I think that's another reason for it.
Well, I know that you use your personal life to influence your writing in the EWA. Has, in your limited time in the EWA, has your time with the EWA influenced any kind of wrestling or things that you did in real life?
Not so much yet, because I haven't really been able to do a whole lot of wrestling since I was quote unquote cleared to wrestle. So I'm planning on investing or immersing, rather, whatever the best word is, some of that stuff into my real life wrestling. I think it was always a part of me anyway. So you're just seeing it in the EWA, but the answer is no. I'll probably incorporate it somewhere along down the line.
That was a question from Brett, who I told I was coming on with you, and he had any questions. Cleve's question was, have you ever taken a match with someone in real life just so you'd have a reason to bump crotches with them? And I'll go ahead and we'll just go ahead and strike that out from the record. Cleve. And then Cleve asked after that, this is the guy that plays Finley, right? So Craig,
do you want to have a match?
Oh, you couldn't handle this. He actually did say how he wanted to know about being a Finley fan. He finds it interesting to see people who were fans of the guys that they play. Obviously, you talked about Finley earlier and how you thought he was vastly underrated. Probably got way more love and appreciation outside of his time in WCW and WWE, and he had a rather lengthy and good run in both.
Mm-hmm. I love Fit Finley. I followed his entire career. If I could meet one wrestler, that would be the guy that I would want to meet. If you guys, I don't know if it would bore you to death, because I'm a technical wrestling aficionado, and I just love that. You guys need to watch his World of Sport stuff. I'm sure John's familiar with it, and Dylan, the guys, across the pond. But I've just always been a Finley fan. He's just a tough, mean bastard. So, I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of him.
Yeah. And then Samoa Joe as well, or was that just a character that you wanted to pick up and try?
I've always been a Samoa Joe fan, and the reason is because I think I find a sort of a distinct parallel, which I don't want to put too much into this because, this is going to come out in my role plays.
Because you guys are both named Joe. I get it.
That, obviously. No, we both don't look the part. I mean, people have told me that straight to my face. I've been told, you can't be on this show because you're too fat. Blatantly put, like that right there. Or I don't have a tan. Or it doesn't matter about my talent, which was in most cases better than or as good as some of the guys that they used. But just because I looked the way that I did, they didn't want me on there. And Joe he's so good, and he's a little bit better as when he was younger, but he's so good now that he's just now starting to get the respect he deserved. Mm-hmm. Even now. And I just feel a parallel, so I've always sort of latched on to Joe too.
You came in mid-July last year, so last year's Super Brawl would have been your first experience with it. Obviously, we've talked the last couple of podcasts about how the Super Brawl experience was kind of tainted with delayed deadlines and all that, so we'll skip past all that. Just talk about how your experience with Super Brawl was, Finley being on Team Lesnar.
Okay. This may not be a popular opinion, but it's full disclosure for me. You're going to find out that I tell the truth, whether somebody likes it or not. I loved my singles role plays for Super Brawl. They were probably my favorite. I know you liked them as well, which I was just trying to get you to mark out, by the way. But anyway, I did not like it.
You didn't like it?
No, I did not like the Super Brawl experience, and I'm going to tell you why. It wasn't that anybody on the team was so hard to work with, and, it wasn't that Key was a bad captain or anything like that. It was just, I just didn't like it. I sort of like doing my own thing, and I know, eventually, hopefully, I'll get the honor of being a captain, and I feel that, getting everybody on the same page will even be more of a stressor for me. I don't know why it is. I've always liked team sports. I've always been a leader in team sports. But for some odd reason, Super Brawl was just a stress for me.
Well, you take a look at the team that you were on, and, you're talking about not, throwing punches or anything like that, which is kind of ironic when we talk about wrestling. But this is the first Super Bowl experience that you had, and you're, the first overall pick for the team, just no-showed for your team. So I can understand how that would almost be just like a deflating or a defeating feeling right off the bat.
Well, that, and there were people, in my opinion, that should have been drafted that wasn't. And one of those was Chang. And I know, people think he may be a bit too concise and maybe he doesn't put forth as much effort. I don't know that. Nobody's told me that. I'm just speculating. But he deserved to be there. And then we chose guys who were going to no-show. So I know you can't foresee that. I know real life happens, but there's a lot of effort being put into this stuff by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I take stuff like this seriously. I don't know about you. I'm sure you do. You've been here long enough.
Yeah.
So, but that's how I feel about it.
I take it more seriously than I should. I've learned to take losses and roll with the punches and kind of use them for storytelling aspects because that's what you have to do here. But yeah, man, like I take wins and losses seriously. I've never, in my 8 or 9 years here now, I've only no-showed once on, like, just straight up on purpose. I've only no-showed once. And any other time, man, like I will stay up till 2, 3 a.m. getting stuff done. I will wake up early on a Saturday because I know I have stuff going on to write role plays. Like this is something that I take seriously, and I take it seriously because I want to be a better writer, and I want to write good, compelling stuff. I want the EWA to be a better place, and I want to push people that are facing me to do their best too. And it can get frustrating when your opponent doesn't give the full effort and doesn't, go the full effort. And it can get frustrating when you have a teammate that does the same. Maybe that's why when I wanted to do a tag team again, the first person I reached out to was John, because I knew that, he's not ever going to leave me high and dry in a situation. So, I that's probably why I was tempted to go towards John first, because I knew he would never just like no show on me, and he's good at communication. But yeah, man, I like you. I take this seriously. I like the people here. It's been kind of a wild ride to get to this point, and now I'm sitting here on a Friday afternoon with my webcam on, recording a video, talking to someone else in here, and we're having good, lengthy, deep conversation about it. And I just think back to like 8 years ago when I never could have imagined that this would be how far it's come. So yeah, you, I take it serious.
And I never would have thought, you would have a podcast for something like this. Don't that blow your mind?
Yeah, I wish I had got on the podcast thing like early on, I wish I would have gotten a podcast instead of eFeds back in 2001. Maybe I'd be a millionaire by now.
I'm used to like board host. You know what I'm talking about? You remember those old boards?
Yeah, I was in late 90s. That was my thing, man.
I thought that's the way it still was. But yeah, I take it seriously, and I'm going to tell you why.
Go ahead.
You could be doing something else with your time.
Yeah.
Spending time with your family, running the roads, just doing whatever you like to do in life. But instead, you're sitting in front of a computer or a tablet or a phone or whatever, and you're writing. And that takes time. And that takes time out of your day to do that, and you take it serious, and I just hate when other people don't respect that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because you could be doing anything else than just this. So, yeah, I do take it seriously. I'm competitive. I want to win in a game of checkers. I don't like losing.
Yeah.
So that's just how I am.
And, I've been blessed, like I've talked about in past podcasts, to have a measure of success here. And sometimes, I take a look at when Cody Rhodes won King of the Ring here, and I kind of fell ass backwards into that. Like, it felt good because it was a 5 role play week, but I won because I got 5 role plays up that week. And I think I was like the only one that did, or the guy I was going up against in the finals, like his last role play was like 200 words or something like that. So, I hate that feeling, and that's what we talked about at Super Brawl, was with the deadline extension and our team the only one getting all their role plays up on the time, and I don't want to win like that. Like I think the EWA is a place where we have great storytellers and great writers and great shit talkers, and I want to beat people when they're posting as many role plays as I do. I'm taken back to my first title shot. And again, this sounds like a podcast about me now. I apologize. But my first title shot with Cody Rhodes against CM Punk's Teasy, tremendous writer. And the week of our match, he, at Red, White, and Bruised, he messaged me and said, hey, can we do 2 role plays this week? On like Friday, when I had my third one halfway written. And instead of just saying like, no, man, like I've got this third one written and it's going to like complete my story, I was just like, yeah. And I think I talked to Newt privately about that, and he was just like, you should have just posted the third, man. Like, he's like, you did the work. It's not your fault that he didn't, measure his time right throughout the week, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So. Oh,
I actually had a similar situation.
Yeah?
And it's nothing, against Lou or anything like that, because like I said, I really like Lou's stuff.
Yeah.
But I had a second role play written out for our national title match on Slam with Dolph Ziggler, and I was just about to post it.
Mm-hmm.
I was coding it actually, and then he messaged and said, "Okay, I just need one role play this week or something along those lines."
Yeah.
So I just said, "Okay," it wasn't no big deal, but I was like, "Crap, man! This whole role play, I've still got it, but I've never got the chance to use it." It was with Ziggler, so I won't be using it now. But yeah.
Well, maybe this is a good segue for us talking about some things that have bothered us to move right into the EWA's hottest podcast segment. No, not predictions on the Hash Pipe Report, but Penis in Uranus. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh is here joining me on the EWA podcast, and it is time for the hottest segment in EWA podcast history, Penis in Uranus. Josh, I know you got one. Josh, I know you probably have 9 or 10, but I'm only going to stop you at 1. Josh, what is your current Penis in Uranus? The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, here we go. And if you feel like I'm calling you out on this, then so be it.
Me?
I'm a real wrestler. No. Well,
okay, thank God. Ah, damn it!
I'm a real wrestler. I can whoop everybody's ass. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, I hate the squash match system. I can't stand it, and I'm going to tell you why. It has its purposes. When utilized correctly, it can do wonders for someone. However, you don't need to do it every week. If you're John Cena, why would he be wrestling a jobber on TV 3 or 4 times a month? There's no reason for it. John Cena's a top name. He should be in top programs. You should be immersing yourself in a program. If you have time to post a character development role play, then you have time to accept a match, even if it's just a 1 RP limit. So, yes, I hate that. Don't post a role play just to get a win. Post a role play to push your story forward, or do something for your character, or set up a angle with somebody, get involved. But I just hate it. I hate it. I think that it should be limited to new characters only, to push their character along, introduce them. But for somebody who's been in the EFED forever, character development role play should be treated as such. Okay, if you want to post one, great, but you're not getting a squash match. That's my penis and my anus.
That's fair. I understand. And like, I've told you in the past that we used to have a show called Friday Night Fury that was just for squash matches. Now, obviously, I don't think Friday Night Fury will ever make a comeback, but it was a fun little show that got put together sometimes for us. I'm kind of in the same camp with you. I feel like if you're going to take a squash match, you got time to throw up something in a 1 role play match with somebody else. My thing is, I feel like we've got too many 1 role play matches going on right now. The majority of matches on Slam this year have been 1 role play, and I don't want this place to, I don't think it ever would, but I don't want the EWA to turn into a place where it's just 1 role play per week for matches. I think the second role play gives you more storytelling elements, and it gives Newt a better chance to judge a winner based on 2 role plays rather than just. It also gives you a chance to respond to the other person. If you're waiting until Saturday at 7 o'clock to post your 1 role play in hopes that you can respond to your opponent, and then your opponent waits until Saturday night at 10 o'clock because they're waiting on you. Like it just alleviates all that. So I'm hopeful that we can go back to having more 2 role play matches on Slam during the week. So, but then there's lots of other things you get into as well. Role play length, I know, is an issue. The lack of feedback on the forum is also for shows is also a problem that I think we're seeing every now and again. But the EWA is still in a good place, and if this is what is going to be our Painus and Uranus, then I think we're doing all right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And, just sorry for being so long-winded on my responses and taking up the entire time. But I actually had a question to ask you since you're an EWA veteran.
Okay.
I don't want to call this a Painus in my anus, but I just wondered. I think some people get lost in the word count battle.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you feel about that, because I know that, I have a sort of a set standard of what I like to write, but if it doesn't meet that, then I stop.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about that? Because I think some people say, okay, if I match the words, then I'm going to win the match. And I don't think that's the proper way to do things.
I think a lot of times for me, I go into a role play with an idea in my mind of this is the idea that I want to get across in this. So if I have a Braun Strowman role play and I'm wanting to and in my mind I'm like, I want him to be in this is a real example that I did a couple years ago. I want Braun Strowman to be in like this back alley poker room. I want someone to bluff him and win a bunch of money off of him. I want him to meet that guy outside and scare the shit out of him, and then he takes his money back, and that's how the role play ends. And I want it to tie into my match like this. Like, you can bluff me, but I'm still going to beat your ass in the end. So that's the idea I have. If I finish that, and I'm at like 750 words, I personally feel like 750 words is not enough for me to tell that story and tell that scene. So I feel like I need to go back and flesh stuff out. Now, whether that's descriptive text or conversations between him and the bluff guy or him and the dealer or anything else, I feel like it needs to be fleshed out. But I'm also to the point, and I ran into this with Ember Moon earlier this week, if I'm finishing my story and I'm at 2,700 words, and I'm like, well, this is, no offense, but this is just for a match with JoJo on Slam. I don't need nearly 3,000 words in just this one role play to get across the point I'm trying to build towards. I'll go back and scale some stuff out. This conversation with her mom doesn't need to go so long, and doesn't this set of dialogue or this scene setting isn't needed at this point. So I think in the back of my mind it plays a part. I don't check my word count until I finish a role play, just because sometimes I'm curious. But there are a lot of times that I finish a role play and I'm like, yeah, that tells what I'm trying to tell. So,
and I'm the same way. I don't check till the end. But funny how you should use 3,000 words, because it seems like most of my role plays just end up being that for some reason. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like to tell the story properly, but I don't think words really matter as much, I guess. And
here's my problem with it, and this is legitimately my problem with it. If you're saying, hey, I want a one role play match this week, and somebody's like, cool, I'm down for that, and then your role play is like 3,200 words, like, you could have told that story over 2 role plays with about 1,500 words in each one. And the other guy's like, 700. Yeah. Like, that's all I got, So.
And I've been guilty of that. Just like everybody else. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Because I've done that with my Samoa Joe role plays. I'll write, and then I'll figure out, well, I could have just broke this up into 2 role plays.
Yeah, and that's understandable. And it's not easy for Newt, because I want to believe that there's a world where, and that's the one we're living in, where he doesn't look at word count, but he's looking at content. And he said before that, well, yeah, if you got a high word count, but you're just saying a bunch of nothing and a bunch of bullshit, it doesn't matter. It's so tough. Like, we all know that for Civil War we're gonna have to bring it, and I don't think any of us that are listening to this are just like, yeah, I'll post 3 1,000 word role plays, and that should be enough to maybe win this thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I understand.
You're really gonna have to step it up for big matches. I wish it wasn't like that, and I wish I didn't treat word count as a way to measure, I guess, the credibility of the opponent, or how important the match is. I guess it's tough. Yeah, I'm a guy who I don't hang on word count, but I have looked at my word count after getting finished with a role play and went back and worked on it. It's something I wish I didn't do. It's just like, this is the story, here you go.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. And I've noticed something too. The caliber of riders here is ridiculous, and this is probably the best E-Fed that I've ever been in for judging, for results, and everything else. I hate to shout out, but the only reason I figured it out was reading Brett's All Hallows Eve.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I figured it out because of him,
Yeah.
and it just kind of clicked, and I said, I can do that. And I just started doing that, and it just sort of came natural. John, watching him write's crazy. And, of course, you don't give yourself enough credit for Strowman. The stuff you do with Marty's great. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, how in the world can I compete with these guys? Because before now, I never wrote like this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the best place. So, I mean, that you can find all kinds of things, word count, character developments, all this other stuff that you can find wrong. But if Newt posted tomorrow, this place is done, I can't take it anymore, I would probably try to fly to California and talk him out of it.
Yeah.
So
I've talked at length about how wrestling against Teasy was a big thing for me and how it grew me as a writer here. I look back at the early on Cody stuff, and no one wants to go back and read their early on role plays. I think there was the Lethal Lottery pay-per-view, which you haven't experienced yet. It may come back at some point, but it was one that I was in, and you get matched up with a random partner. And I think I had a role play with Cody in that, to where he was envisioning different scenarios where he was teamed up with each one, and what would happen, and then he was time warping around, and I look back at that and I'm like, man, that was fucking stupid, you're just doing stupid stuff. And I don't know, man. There's a couple guys that are in the EWA right now who are right there, and I see them as where I was at that point, and I know that if they stick with it, that it's gonna click and they're gonna be really good, and I'm just waiting for this click to happen for some of these guys.
Well, because he's been one of my biggest supporters, and he mentioned me on the podcast with you when he was on here, and he talks about how much better I am than him. If it wasn't for him, and guys like Brett and talking to John, now you and stuff like that, it never would have clicked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because Cuz is so creative. He gave me so many ideas that I never would have thought of myself. And that's just indicative of the caliber of writers that we have here. But yes, I echo your sentiment, and a couple of these guys are just right there. And I hope that of course I'm national champion, but I still don't feel like it sometimes.
Right.
I hope because of most of my run so far, and it's been short, it just doesn't feel like that, has been trying to prove myself to everybody here.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it here in the EWA, for sure.
And that I wanted everybody to know that I'm 100% committed, and if you're going up against me, you better pack a lunch, because it's going to be hard. And hopefully I've been able to do that. And I know people saying, you're national champion, dude. Come on now, you're a rookie of the year, whatever. But still, it still feels like I have something to prove.
Yeah. Totally.
So
I totally been there. When I won my first national title, I just didn't feel like that was enough. And I bring that same mentality in to every match as well. And it's tougher when people put you on this pedestal, and I'm not trying to be humble or modest or whatever, but when people put you on this pedestal and they're they try and well, I gotta go up against Craig this week, I'm like, man, I gotta go up against you. It's not easy. Just because I've been around here for a long time doesn't mean that what you guys are doing and the stories you're telling aren't, for those that haven't been around as long, aren't better, or better than my stuff, or just as good, or whatever. So yeah, I get stressed out for each match too.
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I was looking for a match for Finley, and you just had started with Marty Skrull, you accepted the match, and I physically felt scared. I told John, I was like, I'm about to get my ass handed to me. And he said, I guess we'll see, ha ha, the way John is. But when I actually beat you, and of course I pulled out everything that I could, that second role play there that week, that was one of the most memorable for me. And I was still surprised that I beat you. So I understand what you're saying when people put you on that pedestal, because now it seems like my name is in everybody's mouth.
Right.
And it's just weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that.
It's more fun to fly under the radar,
Yes, I want to be the underdog again. I don't want to lose the title.
Yeah,
the underdog with the title.
It's so much easier to tell a story as the underdog than to tell a story and talk shit as the guy who has everything to lose. It's much easier to be like, hey, you take a look at this match, I'm not even supposed to be here with you, but I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to try my best, and it's like a good story. And then if you're the other guy, you're like, well, I'm supposed to win because I've been here longer, and I'm bigger and better than you, and I've had more success, but I'm also going to try my best. Like, it's such a tough story to tell when you're not the underdog sometimes. And I think that's the most challenging position for writers here in the EWA to be in, is the position of not being the underdog, where it's like, maybe that's what made the Key so good all those times of being the incumbent champion, was every time he was the heavy favorite, and he still had to come out and throw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs every time, and that's...
Well, he's the guy, and I tried to set it up. Of course, he's disappeared, and he's probably doing his own thing, but he's the guy that I virtually, no disrespect intended, wanted to punch in the mouth. I was ready to go after him. And that was because he was the big dog, and I felt like I was the underdog, and I wanted to prove something to him. And that's diminished a little bit, with stuff now, because people praise me so much, but it's still there because, you guys call yourself the old guard.
We don't.
Yeah. Well, I want to be in the upper echelon, let's just say, and stay there, not just a cup of coffee. Well, he was good for a few months and he fell off. I want to be there totally all the time.
Yeah, and it's you have to get to a point where you're bringing it every time that you're booked in a match, and I think we've seen that from you, and I think that's one of my favorite parts about you as well. So keep doing that and stay after it, and I think this could be a year where I'm not going to say that we'll see guys like you, Lou, Cuz, and others ascend and get that championship, because it's the hardest fucking thing to do here in the EWA. But I can say with almost certainty that I think we're going to see you guys get your opportunities. And it's just a matter of the matchup and who brings it in that time period. And I'm excited to see how that plays out as the year goes on.
Well, the thing about me is I have confidence now. So, I still feel like the underdog in some aspects, but I have confidence now. So, whoever I face, I'm going to swing for the fence. So that's just kind of how it is. I hope to see Cuz. Jeff's really good. I really want to see him become a whole lot more consistent, and I know he's going to be. Cuz is very deserving. That guy's so good that it's ridiculous. Jared, people don't give him enough credit either.
Great writer.
That guy is amazing. Lou scares me to death as far as having to face him, and I can't beat him. I've tried, but I'm interested to see that again. And the handler, Jay White, I hope he fleshes out. I hope OVE comes back.
Yeah.
It's just so awesome to be in a place like this.
Well, we're glad to have you as well. I don't want to cut you short. We could probably go on for 3 or 4 more hours, but we're pushing right up against that hour mark. So maybe there'll be a part 2 Josh podcast in the very near future. Josh, any parting words you have for the EWA world?
I've said this on the forums, but I really want to reiterate it to everybody. And this is a little sentimental and it's a little stupid, so, if you don't like that stuff, you can turn it off. If it wasn't for this place, because I actually look at you guys as my friends, peers or whatever, the same way that I would look at people in a locker room during a wrestling show. But if I hadn't have found this place, there's no telling where I would be, because I have my wife. She's always been supportive of me, and She's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me in my life. But when I was told that I couldn't wrestle, or that I wouldn't be able to wrestle anymore, nobody knows the effect that had on me. And it actually happened a little bit longer before, rather, I actually came out with it and told you guys. And I think that's why I immersed myself in so many characters and stuff. But if it wasn't for this place and you guys giving me feedback and you guys talking to y'all and getting the support and being able to compete against you guys, and I'm serious about this, takes it to a whole new level. There's no telling where I would be at right now. I could be slipped into depression. Things could have got worse. Everything else, I felt like everything was leaving. Everything was gone. I didn't have anything anymore because wrestling was all I wanted to do. And I come here and I got better. So if there's nothing else I can say about this game, quote unquote, and the people in it, then that should, John, you, Jared, all the guys that I've spoke to, Cuz especially, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have got better. So I appreciate everything that you guys have done.
Well, this place has a way about it. And, obviously I don't want to take any kind of credit for that, but this, this community as a whole, this little niche community that we have on this strange corner of the internet is a pretty powerful thing. And I've seen different kinds of internet communities that have come together like this do some pretty cool stuff, and I think the stuff that we're doing is really, really great, and I think it has a place for people like you and I, and places for everyone like John, Patrick, Brett, Cleve, all those guys. So,
well, there's never a bad word. That's my point. There's constructive criticism, but there's never a bad word. There are times when I've been very, very upset, when I've got bad news. And even now, I'm not 100% out of the woods, but there have been times when I've got news and I didn't know what to do or how to feel or anything else. And I've come home and I've got on the forums or on my phone or whatever, and somebody's left me a message with some sort of encouragement or some sort of nice word about my work or some sort of goofiness going on the Dylan, of course. Lord have mercy. It'll make you laugh. This place is more than just, like you said, a corner on the internet. I mean, hopefully for you too. It's more than that for me, obviously. So that's my parting words. Sorry, guys, get your tissues. Craig's the dick. I'm the sentimental guy. I'm the one with the all the words and the tissues and the crying, and Craig's just standing over there. He's acting like he cares.
Naked.
Look at him. He's probably making a face right now saying, "Good Lord, shut up. We went too long. You're too long-winded." But
no, not at all.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And Newt, if you ever try to close this place, you will have to answer to me, and I don't want you to have to do that, sir. My Lord, whatever I need to call you. But yeah, he does all these things. He's great. People should give him more credit than what they do, and people should appreciate him a little more. I think that's another penis in my anus. Appreciate him a little more. Stop bitching so much. There you go. Anyway.
Well, maybe Newt will come on the podcast soon. Probably sooner than later. But yeah, for sure, Josh, you're a great asset to have this place, and I know I speak for everyone when I say that I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy with the work that you've been doing, and looking forward to seeing you grow in the future and get the opportunities that you deserve. Also very happy to see you recovering with your situations in real life and able to get back into the ring, as I know that's a big deal for you. So awesome to have you on this podcast, and awesome to get a chance to talk to you about the things that you do in real life and pick your brains on the things in the EWA. I know you have a lot of things to say about the EWA, and you've never been shy in reaching out and talking about all kinds of different things, whether it be storylines, role plays, or just role play limits and things like that. So I appreciate you coming on. I hope you had a good time, and we'll have you back soon. Sound good?
Can't wait, my friend.
All right, that is going to do it for this presentation of the EWA podcast. If you'd like to join me on the EWA podcast, feel free to send me a private message on the forum. We'll get something set up. Of course, next week, pre-Civil War hash pipe report coming up, but then heading into April, I've got a couple people that have reached out to me, so I'll probably try and hit them up. But if schedules don't work out, do not hesitate to reach out and try and get something set up. The EWA podcast format, as you can see, pretty laid back, pretty fun. So come on, especially if you haven't been on the podcast before or either podcast, and try and get out there and and let's have some conversations about you, wrestling, and your EWA life. For Josh and myself, though, thank you for watching and listening. This has been a presentation of the EWA. Thank you for watching.